Hey, good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you a little story this morning about something that I noticed with my clients that's so pervasive. There's so many people that struggle with it and actually don't know that this is even going on. So I know we've talked about it a lot, but I think there's a lot of confusion because of social media. There's a lot of people think that all we do here is talk about, chicken and broccoli and going to the gym. And if you don't do it, we beat you up and that sort of thing. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's so much deeper than that. There's so much more to it. So I just want to talk a little bit this morning about our brain and how it works and how we're programmed and how these patterns that control our behavior and in our life, really, how they happen. So it was always fascinating to me when I was in dental school. We did rotations through all the different departments. And I remember one surgery in particular. It was a neurosurgery, a brain surgery, and it really is fascinating. You just literally cut the top of the head off. You lay a flap, lay the skin back, and take a saw and cut it's called the calvaria. You cut that off, pull it up, put it on the side, and the patient is awake the whole time. And there's a curtain, and the head and the brain sticking out one side of the curtain, and the person's on the other side, and they need to be awake so you can touch different parts of the brain. And they can tell, they can, like one part might make the foot move, or another part might do this or that. And there's really no pain nerve endings in the brain. It's really fascinating. But we were doing a surgery, and it was, the person had a pituitary tumor, a little tiny gland right in the top of the brain. And we took out the tumor, and then we put these little things, looked like little mouse turds in there that were actually radioactive seeds. And put the top of the brain back on, sewed them together, and away we went. And it was just so fascinating to me when you take that off and you look at what's in here. There's a little tiny part, it's called the prefrontal cortex, right in the front, this forebrain, that's our conscious brain. In other words, that's how I'm thinking now of what my next word should be when I'm talking to you. Our conscious decisions, like I'm going to reach down and pick up this coffee cup and have a sip of coffee. That's our conscious brain. But the majority of it, the bulk of it, everything else is this unconscious mind, these automatic patterns that cause our different behaviors. And so it was just fascinating when you actually look at that there's such a small amount of our brains dedicated to conscious behavior, while the majority of it is on autopilot. So the best way I can help you understand this is to, the next time you're brushing your teeth, if you normally do it with your right hand, do it with your left hand. If you're, the next time you're warming up on the golf course, if you normally golf right-handed, just do it left-handed a few times. These are all patterns, even eating. Just try eating a meal with your other hand, your non-dominant hand sometime. And that will help you understand these patterns that are running in the background. They're repeated thoughts and movements and behaviors and that sort of thing. They are not conscious. We're not. But the minute we make them conscious, you can see just like, whoa, everything slows down. It's like, I can't even figure out how to eat a meal with I'm left hand dominant with my right hand. It's just so awkward. And that's because the conscious mind kicks in, and it's not nearly as powerful, not nearly as efficient. And it's okay. The unconscious mind is nothing to be afraid of. It's designed to protect us, but the problem is it's our conscious mind. It does not evolve. It gets stuck in these familiar loops, and these loops, these patterns of behavior, in the unconscious mind, they can definitely negatively affect how we see things, how we do things, how we act, and they show up in the form, when I'm looking at my clients' check-in sheets every week, they start to show up as self-sabotage, or what they perceive as a lack of discipline, or repeating the same mistakes, or you know, settling when you know you're capable of so much more. And when those patterns start to show up, the problem is you can't see your own blind spots. You don't, just like you can't see the patterns that are causing you to do certain things in your life, it's really hard for you to see your own blind spots. And the other thing to understand is most of these patterns were established literally before you were the age of 7 by well-meaning people, just through repeated behaviors. We've all heard the analogy of, you know, the first time you tried to walk, you failed miserably, right? But you just kept going over and over and over until you repeated these patterns long enough that your unconscious brain said, oh, I got this from now on. And then it's just like you're running all over the house, right? To say, you see this in traumatic brain injuries, when people lose their ability to walk, when they've been walking their whole life and they lose their ability to walk or talk because those unconscious patterns got destroyed, and now our conscious mind is trying to remember them, remember how to do them, and it's just a really slow process. So the unconscious mind is really, really powerful, and the problem is if you have patterns running in the back of your mind that do not serve you, that say, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this or that, why, you know, who am I to want a life like this? You know, all of those things, they will start to sabotage you. And it's kind of like a thermostat in a room. You know, if you're, and part of that revolves around your identity. So if your identity is at 70 degrees at room temperature, as soon as you start to heat up, in other words, you start, you know, things start clicking in your life and you start moving on, and these things look like they're getting better. A lot of people, I notice, these patterns start to show up. They'll do things to sabotage themselves, whether it's, you know, getting to a weight loss goal, or getting to a, you know, a certain job or a certain level in your job, or whatever it is. You've all felt that. You get to a certain point and all of a sudden you cool back down to that 70 degrees. You might get up 80, 90 degrees, and it's, you know, where things are clicking along really good, and you self-sabotage. You go eat things that you're not supposed to do. You go do things that you know don't serve you. That's that unconscious mind trying to rerun the pattern, because you haven't changed the identity. You haven't changed who you are, number one. And number two, you simply don't recognize this negative pattern. And the problem is you can't see your own blind spots, because to you, they're normal. These patterns are normal. There's things that you repeat over and over and over. And it's kind of like you can't see the label on a whiskey bottle from the inside, right? You have to be outside to see it. And that's the best analogy I can give you here. Is it's really hard, even for me, to recognize these patterns that don't serve me. It takes a third party, an outside person, to observe your behavior, to track your behavior. And that's why it's so important what we do here with all the tracking, is because once we see that your thermostat is set at a certain amount, and then your life starts clicking, or the other way, once you might start struggling, and you're cooled down, that thermostat cools down, and you're running at 60 degrees, and then like, oh, well, I got to get back up to my thermostat setting, my 70 degrees, then you'll get there, but you can't get beyond that. And that's the problem. This is why willpower alone fails over and over, because these patterns, this thermostat setting, has to be identified by somebody else. You won't even see it. So this awareness I'm talking about comes from honest reflection. It comes from the feedback from others, and then tracking behaviors over time. That's how we do this, okay? And to break it, you need to catch these things in real time. You need to, once they're identified, once we help people identify those things, then they start to recognize, hey, I'm doing that thing again, right? They catch it in real time, they pause, and then they choose to respond differently, and then they repeat the new pattern. And sometimes that requires a trigger, right? You even hear this on podcasts of high performing people. You'll hear them do some sort of trigger because they're finding that they're starting to like doubt themselves. They're starting to kind of get out of the zone. And I know even some people will put a rubber band on their wrist and they'll snap it. Some sort of trigger to say, hey, I need to catch this pattern that's not serving me in real time. I need to choose to respond with a new pattern, and then I repeat that over and over until we reinstall a better pattern in your life. And that's what's so important about having somebody that understands this, that's got your back, that's looking at your life and your behavior and your decisions from a distance, and then saying, hey, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever considered this? I noticed you got to a certain point and then you backed off, or you sabotaged yourself, right? And there's all kinds of reasons for self-sabotage. We've talked about those things before. You're afraid your identity might change. You're afraid you might lose your friends, or other people will sabotage you because they don't want you to change. They want you to stay the same because they're afraid they're going to lose you. So all these things happen. You don't even know they're happening because these unconscious programs, these patterns are running in the back of your mind. So that's what we do here. We identify these patterns, we interrupt them, right? And then we rebuild a better pattern. That is so important. That alone can just totally change people's lives. Once they realize that and they understand this with one pattern, and then we start to identify more patterns that aren't serving you. Once you do this once and you identify the pattern that's not serving you, you interrupt it and you rebuild a better pattern. Once you do that, then as soon as somebody points out, hey, that pattern maybe isn't serving you the best, then you know what to do. But it takes a third party, it takes help. It's not that I'm that smart, it's just that I've coached hundreds of men now to see how this whole system works. And until you understand that and you get help, you're just going to be stuck in these same loops. And I'm telling you, life looks better on the other side. Once you identify these things that are limiting you, everything, your relationships, your business, your financial situation, your health, the way you look in the mirror, everything explodes. It's all connected. So I hope that makes sense. If you want any help with that, if you're saying, yeah, that's me, I need to start paying attention to this, look me up, send me a DM, whatever you know how to get a hold of me. There's lots of ways to do that. Send me a direct message, say Vital, and we'll send you some information that may help you, it will help you understand some of these patterns that are holding you back in your life. So I appreciate everybody listening today. Cheers, take care, and if you need anything, that's what myself and my team are here for. So make it a great day.